Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, in the news today, we're going to talk about the deadly storms that went through the Midwest United States, tornadoes there, many people losing their life, and much destruction from those storms. Also, we saw that Finland now joining NATO, Russia particularly, not liking that at all, and some of the violence associated with the holy days of Ramadan, as they call them. We'll have those details and much more. But first, Southern Nevada is seeing an alarming trend across 15 hospitals and long-term care facilities. A sometimes deadly fungal infection called Candida auris is spreading faster there than anywhere else in the nation. Dr. Megan Lehman from the CDC told NBC Nightly News, quote, "In many situations, investigation will reveal that there are many more cases. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and it has been spreading undetected for some time." Now, C. auris, as it's known, can evade drugs meant to kill it and affects mainly the bloodstream, heart, or brain of patients in these healthcare settings.
Wow. Well, it can spread from one person to the next on things like bed rails or equipment like thermometers, and can also live on a person's skin. Well, Nevada has over 1,000 cases. They are seeing, of course, signs of it spreading through communities. Dr. David Diaz from the Nevada State Public Health Laboratory told NBC News, quote, "A lot of patients are coming in with the infection already, and they have no previous medical history. So in those cases, we know that they had to get it somewhere else."
Well, health officials are trying to calm fears that C. auris is not the next COVID-19, but if something is not done to quickly contain it, there is concern it will be the next public health risk. Now, the CDC is trying to find treatments, and those who are in better health have less to worry about. However, the rapid rise in cases is already raising alarm for many across the nation.
Wow. Well, deadly tornadoes hit the South and Midwest over the weekend, leaving at least 33 people dead. Destruction in numerous communities took place from Illinois to Alabama and reaching to the East Coast in Delaware. In Arkansas, where 5 people lost their lives, they called for a state of emergency. An EF3 tornado hit the capital city of Little Rock, injuring more than 50 people. With an EF3, the wind speeds can reach up to 165 miles per hour. And in the small town of Wynne, Arkansas, it was pretty much reduced to a pile of rubble.
In Belvidere, Illinois, 260 concert goers were attending a heavy metal rock concert when a EF1 tornado caused the roof of the building they were in to collapse on top of them. Now, one person died as a result, while dozens more were injured. But Tennessee saw the most fatalities, with over a dozen people killed by the extreme weather system. Now, in the county of McNairy alone, they lost 9 of its residents, the highest death toll for any single county.
Wow. We're now going to turn it over to our field correspondent, Larry McGee, who has more for us on a little bit of what you talked about earlier, the Ramadan violence that is taking place over in Jerusalem, Israel, and Finland, who is also joining NATO. And we're going to take a little bit of, he's going to give us a little information on Belarus and their nuclear program. Larry, what do you have for us?
A seldom acknowledged reality in all of the escalating tumults increasing throughout the world at present is the fact that most, if not all of them, have religious underpinnings. A recent brawl inside Al-Aqsa Mosque between Muslims and Israeli soldiers has to provide undeniable evidence of this. In this particular altercation, it was Islamic worshippers who appear to have caught the worst of it. Videos have now surfaced showing Israeli soldiers pummeling mosque goers with batons, boots, and fists. Israeli authorities have made every effort to justify the use of force by stating that the worshippers had deliberately violated agreed upon time constraints, and there are reports that there might have indeed been some pre-planning by some to incite an altercation prior to the celebration of the Jewish form of Passover, where Jews are permitted scheduled access to the Temple Mount. Both Hamas and the Jordanian Foreign Ministry are said to have officially condemned the incident as an attack. Russia has long condemned NATO expansion as an attack against its security, but the alliance has continued forward progression, however, bringing in Finland recently to further swell its ranks. Defense Secretary Blinken says the Confederacy has Russia to thank for its latest addition, in so much as Russia's recent move against Ukraine is said to have generated fears that ultimately catalyzed Finland's decision to seek NATO membership. Finland's inclusion doubles the alliance's border with Russia, and Moscow says it will now respond in kind. What kind of response that would be didn't take long to surface, as Moscow announced that it would be placing a contingent of its much-discussed tactical nukes in Belarus. Russia is reported to already have delivery systems such as planes and missile systems situated in Belarus that will facilitate the use of the smaller nukes designed specifically for the battlefield. President Putin likens his positioning of the weapons in Belarus to the U.S. stationing its own nukes in various places throughout Europe, and says that the deployment does not violate the terms of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee, Katan Chef. Back to you.
Well, Katan, over the past months and years, we've seen NATO build up around the western border of Russia, but now Russia making a couple moves there, making a nuclear deal there with Belarus and actually stationing the nuclear missiles there in that country.
Yeah, and I feel that Russia's probably feels itself like it's being backed into corner, since now Finland has also joined NATO. So pretty much most of its western border is pretty much getting cut off, and Russia has never liked that to begin with, but NATO has continued to make moves to get other countries to allow NATO to move in and station weapons there, military there, and of course allow them to become a part of their alliance.
Well, China and Russia are working to produce a multipolar world order, accusing the West of undermining global stability and pushback against Western hegemony. Now, the two leaders met in Moscow as a show of public defiance. They vowed to create a more just and democratic multipolar world order based on international law and the principles enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. Now, Xi's three-day visit to Russia concluded with the Chinese president saying, quote, "Chinese and Russian ties are of vital importance for the modern world order and the fate of mankind."
President Putin praised their country's relations and mentioned that they were the highest they'd been in a long time. Well, both leaders toasted each other's efforts at a dinner to solidify and strengthen their strategic relationship, and said how doing so now not only is going to benefit their countries, the two, but all of mankind.
Well, the U.S. dollar has been the backbone of the global economy since World War II. Investors saw the dollar as a safe place to invest. But now there's a new player on the economic block looking to surpass and replace the ever-weakening dollar. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, also known as the BRICS nations, are looking to develop their new currency.
Yeah, that's right. Their goal is to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar and other Western currency and protect themselves from international pressure. Brazil and China have already struck a deal to pay for trade items bypassing the dollar, which is a boost to China's push to establish the yuan as the dominant international currency.
Well, the BRICS nations are a powerhouse of commerce. They make up 41% of the world's population, 24% of the world's GDP, and more than 16% of the world's trade. Now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said of a BRICS common currency, quote, "Serious, self-respecting countries are well aware of what is at stake and want to create their own mechanisms to ensure sustainable development. It is this direction that initiatives that have been voiced recently about the need to think and about creating our own currencies within the framework of BRICS."
Well, the BRICS summit to be held this August in South Africa will be the time when this proposal will be addressed. Russia has a major reason to push for this, as it's currently under sanctions from the U.S., as well as its access to the global banking system being limited, and it cannot use the U.S. dollar freely. Well, the other members of BRICS agree, as they also want to challenge the U.S. dollar hegemony.
Well, take a look at this next video about President Putin, how he's changed over the years and what his mission is.
President Putin seemed dominant both diplomatically and in war.
Allahu Akbar.
He had intervened in Syria to support President Assad, a kinetic demonstration of his view after Afghanistan, Iraq and Libya that overthrowing leaders, even dictators, only led to chaos. Today, the president of Belarus, known as Europe's last dictator, counts Putin as his closest ally.
As I once said, no one has a closer relationship than the president of Belarus and the president of Russia.
President Vladimir Putin is a keen student of history. He has interwoven his personal history with the history of Russia. And right outside the Kremlin is this giant statue of another Vladimir, Vladimir the Great, Grand Prince of Kiev. 1,000 years ago, ruling this region from Kiev, this Vladimir introduced Christianity to this place. President Vladimir Putin uses history and religion to explain his opinions and to justify his actions. This Vladimir was only unveiled in 2016. Anyone who says President Putin's actions could never have been predicted, that he is unpredictable, that we couldn't have seen it coming, wasn't paying attention. This is President Putin today. In some respects, he's the man he's always been. But President Putin is also very different from the once visibly meek and modest man of more than 2 decades ago. He has been changed by the office, his sense of self now completely fused with the state. Once a Soviet KGB officer, he now crosses himself regularly in public and spends time with the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church. Those who know him say he now believes he is doing God's work.
It's his way, which was not selected by him, but what he was selected this way from the above. And he's now going this way. As I said, he's living with a very clear understanding that he has a mission, And this is driving force for him. He's not living for today. He's living for tomorrow, to fulfill his mission. He's not living for today. He's living for tomorrow, to fulfill his mission.
So, it's interesting how he said that, Vladimir Putin says he is not going to stop until he completes his mission. His mission is from God. We've had several U.S. presidents who have made that same statement in the past, and we've seen in the past where people feel that they're driven by a higher calling, vehemently push their goal, their cause, without stop, irregardless of who might be in their way.
Right, and President Putin holds views that are different from a lot of the Western views, which allows him to come under attack quite often for holding strong to some of his beliefs. So, like you said, he doesn't really care too much what other nations, what other presidents think. He feels he has a mission and he's going to carry it out.
Yeah, and like a lot of the other countries, I see some similarities with President Putin, especially countries in the Middle East. He's really trying to hold on, like you mentioned, to their morals, their moral values, their moral principles, and they're trying to push out or keep the ways of the West from being integrated into their culture, into their society, which they feel is very, very harmful to their nation. So.
Well, if you'd like to find out more about these stories, contact the House of Yahweh. When you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and Prophetic Word magazine. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can visit them on any of their websites by going to yahweh.com, yisraelhawkins.com, or yahwehsbranch.com. Or you can visit our website by going to ypnnews.com. You can email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And don't forget the Yisrael Says and Ask Yisrael programs. You can find those by going to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com. Well, don't go anywhere, because up next is another informative and classic sermon by Yisrael Hawkins. For all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.